Hello everyone, thank you for joining me for Simon Says Stamp's newest release, Holiday Sparkle. I have something a little bit different for you today, an advent calendar featuring a new background stamp called So Many Presents. Now, how appropriate is that for an advent calendar? I began this project by working with the featured product So Many Presents, stamping 25 pieces of cardstock that measure 6 by 6 with Versamark ink. I know that you know what these are going to become. They will be turned into little treat boxes for the advent calendar. It is difficult to get a good impression of a background stamp like this when it's pressed right into the corner of the Misty. Where the door is close to the raised edge of the Misty, there's just not a lot of give and it's difficult to get an impression. This wouldn't be an issue if I was working on a smaller panel, but I need the full impression from the entire stamp. So you can see in the corner of my Misty, I have placed one of the corners from their Creative Corners set. This keeps the stamp away from the edges of the Misty so that there's good give when pressure is applied on the door. Do use a pressure tool so that I get a nice impression. While I'm doing my stamping, my heat tool is coming to full temperature. After my panel has been coated with gold embossing powder, I apply the heat to both the front and the back of the panel to minimize warping. Once I got going, I would stamp 5 of these panels at a time and coat them with embossing powder. The heat tool would stay good and hot, and I was able to melt the embossing powder quickly for all 5. With so many panels to emboss, this is a little bit of a time saver. I'll be using We Are Memories gift box punch board to create the little boxes. This tool has been around for a number of years, but it is absolutely awesome. You can create so many different sizes of boxes. For this advent calendar, I will be using the smallest size, which is a box that will measure 1 3/4 inches. The step-by-step directions are written right on the tool. It is extremely easy to use. The chart tells me that for a 6 by 6 panel, I'm going to line it up on the start line on the letter S, which stands for small. The scoring tool is removed from the storage pocket. Because the panel is embossed, I decided at the last minute to flip it over and do all my scoring on the back of the panel. I begin by depressing the punch. The panel will be rotated 4 times so that there will be 3 score lines on each side. 1 horizontal, 1 vertical, and then 1 small diagonal. The panel is then rotated clockwise to the next side. I make sure that the edge of the panel lines up with the letter S and then begin with a punch. I then go ahead and score it horizontally, vertically, and diagonally. I continue until all 4 sides have been scored. Each of the 4 sides will have to be punched 1 more time. So the panel is flipped over and again it is lined up at the S on the start line and punched. To put this box together, all of the score lines need to be creased. Small diagonal score lines need to be creased and pushed towards the center of the box. It's kind of like magic, but this just pushes together into a box. This box is designed so that it will just fold up and no adhesive is required. Slits can be punched using the opposite side of the punch on each of the corners. These create closures. But for the advent calendar, I don't want these boxes to pop open, so I am going to be using adhesive and reverse tweezers to hold everything in place until that glue sets. I want the recipient to be able to open the boxes with ease, so I'm going to be using small Velcro stickers. two stickers that will form the closure have been placed together and attached to one side of the box. Then the other side is flipped down and adhered to it. Then I use my reverse tweezers and slip it in between the top and bottom tab that will form the closure to apply pressure to ensure that those stickers have good contact. My advent calendar will be built on an 8-inch wooden circle, but a chipboard circle would work equally as well. The side and top of the base are given 2 coats of white acrylic paint. The numbers for the boxes were die cut from an older set by Simon Says Stamp called Archie Solid Numbers. This set is no longer available. These numbers are 1 inch high and fit nicely on the top lid of the box. Any number dies around this size or even the pre-foam cut stickers would work well. I've die cut the numbers from both gold cardstock and foam and stacked them. After they are adhered to the uppermost flap, I do pop an ink pad on top just to give it a little bit of weight so that there's good contact. The 2-digit numbers will overhang the top flap. I was careful to avoid getting adhesive on that portion of the number that would overhang, otherwise the recipient would have a bit of a tough time opening the box. I wanted to make sure that the boxes were adhered very well to the base, so I'm going to be using a hot glue gun. 9 boxes will form the first row of the Advent tree. I just put a good dollop of glue right on the wooden base and then set the box on top. And the nice thing about working with hot glue is it sets up very quickly. I'm placing my numbers in order, so my bottom row started with the boxes that were numbered 1 through 9. This advent calendar will be well decorated, and I don't want the recipient having to dig through all of the decoration trying to find the right number of box to open. And then I just work my way up. So my second row will consist of 7 boxes, the third row 5, and then I'm on to 3 boxes, which will finish off the top with 1. This advent calendar is intended for an adult, so it's going to have a more sophisticated look than what you might find in a children's calendar. I'm going to start off by putting on lots of greenery, but of course the greenery is actually gold foil. I've chosen Simon Says Stamp's Etched Delicate Frond. This is nice and light and airy, and I think it's perfect for an advent calendar. The leaves are tucked in and around the boxes. As the decorations go in place, I am avoiding the front of the boxes so that each box can be easily opened. Next, I will be adding on Etched Berry Branch. This is a fairly large die cut, and I've actually cut it into 2 pieces so that it would be a little bit smaller. I want some little hints of pink on my advent calendar, so this is a good opportunity for me to do that. And I'm adding in some pink confetti on the berry detail of the branches. These white branches are layered in with the gold leaves. All of the greenery is going to be finished up with a small branch from Simon Says Stamp's Christmas foliage. All of the berry detail is going to be highlighted with Nouveau Dream Drops. I'm working on this late in the evening and I'm getting tired, and so this is a good time for me to finish up with these Nouveau Drops. This will be the last thing that I do in this session, and tomorrow morning the drops will be dry and I can start adding them into the tree. The crowning glory on this advent calendar will be a trio of blossoms. This is actually one of my favorite dies by Simon Says Stamp. It's called Etched Magnolia Blossom. These pretty pink blossoms with their gold centers will help draw the eye to the top of the tree in all that sea of gold and white. After a little bit of hand shaping, they're ready to go on top of the tree. The flowers are going to be adhered to the top with foam squares. By placing the foam square on the lower petals, the top petals are then free to be lifted up to create a more dimensional look. Positioning the 3 flowers in a triangle will give support to the upper petals, keeping them dimensional. One of the gold die cut's delicate frond has been trimmed down to 3 pieces and slipped in between each of the flowers. Then the small berry branch with all of its pink accents is added in here and there throughout the tree. This Advent calendar is going to be finished off with gold dragonflies and butterflies using etched dragonfly and stylized butterfly by Simon Says stamp. The first dragonfly will be attached to a strip of acetate. I've made a fold at the bottom of the acetate strip and placed liquid adhesive. It's nestled down between the blossoms and a craft pick holds the acetate in place until the glue sets. All of the butterflies and dragonflies have been shaped so that when they are adhered to the tree, they look like they've just landed on it. And after the glue is completely dry, I do go back and open up the doors and make sure that everything is going to be easy to access for the recipient. And that completes this Botanical Advent Calendar featuring Simon Says Stamps' So Many Presents. This project was super fun to make, and now it's time to go shopping to fill up all those little boxes. Be sure to check out the rest of this fabulous new release, Holiday Sparkle. You are going to love it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I appreciate your visit.